Welcome to another expert interview. I say the same thing to start everyone, and I mean it. I always enjoy these conversations. I get to talk to the coolest people doing the best things. Today's no exception, and this is kind of a part two, but we're going to go a different direction. So we had Elwin on, and we dove into genetic insights and supplements. We're going to continue the conversation today with Elliot. So Elliot, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us who you are and what you do?
Hey, Devin, I'm Elliot Newman, and I run several internet-based businesses, mostly focused on selling dietary supplements. And then I also help other people to monetize their brand, which we're going to talk about today.
That's awesome. And thank you so much for taking the time. I know before we hit record, you were talking about you're in the middle of selling a house, moving countries, all sorts of crazy stuff. So
Yeah,
appreciate the time, man.
you're welcome.
So give me some backstory. How did we end up in the supplement world? Let's hear a little bit of your story and then we'll dive in.
Does this have to be family friendly?
You go wherever you want, man. We're all professionals. Have fun with it.
When I was 25, so going back 15 years, I decided I was sick of working in the property business, what you guys call the real estate business. I'd had enough of it. I'd done it for 7 years since I left school, and I'd learned a lot. It was a good experience, but I was sick of it. I wanted to do something different. And I met a guy who today is one of my best friends, but at the time he was just working for a property company because we were looking for new tenants for our property portfolio. And we got on really well, and we said, let's go out for a bite to eat. So we go out for a bite to eat, and we're talking about various things that guys talk about. The subject turns to women. And after about half an hour of this conversation, Simon says, you should really take what you know about women and relationships and everything to do with that and turn it into digital products. And I remember I said, Si, I don't know what you're talking about. Because at that point in my life, I didn't even use a computer. Like, honestly, Devin, I didn't use a computer. So I was like, what do you mean? And then he said to me, you can take what you know and turn it into ebooks and maybe audio courses, video courses, and sell them online. And I was like, okay, how do I do that? And he pointed me in the direction of a couple of resources. He said, follow these two guys, read everything, listen to everything, watch everything that they've produced about internet marketing. One of those guys was Frank Kern, the other one was Eben Pagan. And he was right. They were good people to learn from. And I set up a couple of businesses. One was in that realm of teaching guys how to have better relationships with women, teaching guys how to meet women, teaching guys what to do once they have a woman. And I also, at the time, was working in the fitness industry because I was competing in powerlifting. And one of my friends at the time was one of the greatest powerlifters who've ever lived. So I had these two internet businesses completely unrelated, one to do with powerlifting, strength training, one to do with, let's say, relationships and dating. And after a while, the relationships and dating one was making more money. It was more fulfilling. It was my business. I wasn't splitting it with somebody else. So I let the fitness stuff go, even though that's still a huge passion of mine today. But I let the business side of it go and I focused on the dating stuff. And after a couple of years, I realized there was a lot of guys out there who needed support when it came to optimizing their male performance, let's say. I'll keep it PG just in case. The emails were literally like, Adam, because I use a pen name in that business, Adam Armstrong. The emails would be, Adam, I really like what you're saying in your books and whatnot, but I can't really use these techniques in the bedroom because things aren't working. So I wrote this report, and this report was for a smoothie, right? And I figured if I could get some of these guys to give up the fast food and all the other crap that most people eat at least one time a day and replace it with this smoothie, not only would they take a lot of that toxic load off themselves because they'd give up one McDonald's or Burger King or whatever it is, they'd replace it with this smoothie that was loaded with things that I knew would help boost testosterone, help boost performance, help improve circulation, that kind of thing. And it was really successful. I remember one affiliate sold 1,000 copies in 2 emails. Another affiliate sold 500 copies. Yeah, and it was quite cheap. The thing is, it was quite a cheap report. It was about $10. I remember one affiliate wrote to me and said, I hope you're making some money out of this, Adam. And I said, oh, don't worry about that. I am. And they couldn't work out how. But the thing was, I was putting affiliate links in the report so that when guys needed to buy the ingredients, I was showing them where to get the ingredients. And I started to see how much people would spend on certain ingredients, superfoods, super herbs, this kind of thing. And then I got guys saying, hey, Adam, the report's great, but can you do something ready-made? Because it's too difficult to make a smoothie that takes 2 minutes. And that is where I transitioned into the world of supplements. And it was very complicated because at first You had certain barriers to entry. A lot of manufacturers just wanted to white label something for you, which usually meant it was low quality, and then you'd just be selling the same thing as somebody else with a different label on. I didn't want to do that. Some of the manufacturers who would create a custom formula, you were talking six figures up front just to get the project started. So it was a big barrier to entry at the time. That was a lot of money back then. And then eventually, long story, but I met Elwin, and Elwin was able to work with me. He already had a kind of pipeline of ingredients coming over from half the world away through to the UK. And then he had a manufacturer who would work with him here. Nowadays, we do it all in America, but a manufacturer worked with him here, and it made it viable. And it transformed the business overnight. The first supplement we launched, it was like $75,000 gone like that. And it happened on 2 consecutive months. So October, November, December of 3 consecutive months. October, November, December of 2015. And then we opened it up to affiliates in January. And then that was it. The business really took off. And that's how we ended up in the supplement business.
I love that. I love that it's 3 worlds colliding, right? It's your expertise and the relationship side, which kind of led you down this path, what men are looking for. The health part coming in with supplements, but then I think this is where, as we transition to monetize my brand, your deep dive into how do we do online sales and direct sales and follow up and nurturing and affiliates. That's a very complex world. And so it's not just about launching a product, which is hard enough. It's about actually driving sales and recurring sales.
Yeah, it is. And there's lots of ways to do that. We relied for a long time on affiliates. And to some extent, to a large extent, those businesses do rely on affiliates and the existing customer base. It's actually a very difficult niche to be in terms of customer acquisition, because you can't advertise in a lot of the places that people normally would. You can't do Facebook ads, Google ads. You can, but it's very black hat. So you're playing a game of cat and mouse with those big social media platforms. So we don't really do it, but some people do it and they get away with it for a while. But it makes acquiring customers tricky in that niche. But on the flip side, you have customers with true bleeding neck problems that they will spend a lot of money to solve. And once they try your product and realize it works, they tend to keep buying it for a long period of time. So you get a high average order value and a high lifetime customer value, which helps to offset the struggle with customer acquisition. But to build the strongest business possible, you would ideally have a variety of customer acquisition methods, so that if one of them starts to fall off a cliff or disappears for some reason, it doesn't matter, because you've got another 8 or 10 ways that you get customers. And it would ideally be a combination of warm and cold traffic, online and offline. That would build the strongest business possible in terms of customer acquisition.
So let's talk about monetize my brand in that business. I want to dive in, and then let's dissect this business, marketing. So that business, explain how that was born. And then I know you have an amazing success story there too. So wherever you want to go, let's dive into that.
Me and Elwin being my business partner who you interviewed a couple of weeks ago, for people who don't know, we got to a point where we were and are really competent on the back end of the business. Like, I'd be lying to you if I said I was good at driving Facebook ads or Google ads. I'm not. That's not what I focused on. But in terms of increasing average order value, increasing frequency of purchase, increasing lifetime customer value, getting the most out of your list, promoting complementary products, launching products as new products and services on a regular basis, we got really good at that. And we started to have these conversations where it was like, we could apply this to so many different businesses. Like, these skills are really transferable. And in most industries, you see that people get very stuck. They just do what everyone else does in the industry. And if they end up at the best in that industry, it's only by a little bit, and it's just good luck, because they're really only doing the same stuff as everyone else. Nobody thinks outside the box. So it's all quite close in terms of competition. But sometimes when you see someone look outside their industry and steal an idea from a completely different industry and then apply it to their industry, you get a major breakthrough. You and I are about to do this with the golf business, which we may or may not want to talk about, but similar idea, right? We're launching something that's not there in golf. It's there in other industries. We've seen a gap in the market. So we had these conversations and we were like, yeah, we could apply this to so many businesses. For many years, I did apply these skills, but I didn't charge for them. So I'd be in masterminds, or I'd talk to people and I'd say, hey, why don't you try this? Why don't you try that? And they'd be like, what? Why? And then they'd try it and they'd be like, oh, I see why. Because it makes loads of money. So the big breakthrough for us was a friend of mine called Kyle Koschecker, who works at ClickBank. One day he sends me an email, or maybe a phone call, I don't know. But either way, he reached out to me and he said, I think you should speak to this guy called Sterling Cooper. He was a former adult entertainment star, and now he actually teaches men that watching pornography is bad for them. And he also aims to teach men how to be better men. So I was like, okay, sounds like a cool guy. So Kyle showed me this guy's social media channels, and I was like, wow, this guy's got a big following between Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, wherever else, TikTok. He's got about 1 million followers, and they seem pretty engaged. And I looked at his website and I could see that he was already doing very well selling digital courses, video courses, and ebooks, but he didn't have supplements. And I also saw that a lot of his videos were about how to improve performance. So I was like, he's missing a trick. No matter how well he's doing right now, he could be doing a lot better. Kyle actually reached out to this guy for me, and we were able to get a response. And Sterling and I had a few conversations. We met in person, had a couple more conversations, and then we formed Clubhouse Supplements, which is basically all of the formulas that he used when he was an adult entertainment star, but not as ready-made formulas. He had a product for stamina, or he had a stack for stamina that involved several different nutrients, but he'd buy them all from different companies. We basically figured out how to take all of his formulas to improve different aspects of performance and make them like each one an independent formula, so you didn't have to buy 7, 8, 10 ingredients. And that business was very successful from day one. The first month we launched, we did $400,000, and then the second month we did over 300. So it was like $700,000 of sales, just over, in the first 2 months, because he already had an audience. We just saw that there was untapped potential in it, and he saw it too once we pointed it out. But a lot of people are sat on an audience, and that could be an email list, it could be a social media following, could be something else. But they're sat on an audience and they don't realize how much untapped potential there is in that audience. And that is what we help people see with Monetize My Brand. We help them figure out how do they monetize their brand or their audience, whatever they might be. And they could be an influencer, they could be just an expert on something, they could be a doctor. It doesn't really matter. If they've got an audience, chances are they're not monetizing that audience as well as they could.
I love that. Again, I was excited to go here because it's such a successful story, right? Had a large audience, and then something else you said is an engaged audience. So I think that's important to highlight, right? There's a lot of people with vanity metrics out there that don't have engagement. So if you have a large engaged audience, whether it's client base, prospect, social presence, YouTube followings, but you're getting comments and engagement, I tell people all the time, like, where's your revenue streams? Look at how else you could be monetizing that, whether it's information products, whether it's partnerships with apparel companies or launching your own apparel. And supplements are interesting because it's not something I ever thought of. And then we connected and I was like, that's brilliant, right? Because there's so many people talking about energy and clarity and all of these other aspects. And it's, what if we add supplements? Because we know, and you probably have stats on it, right? Most people aren't taking the right supplements nor the right quantities.
No. And yeah, you're right. And in an ideal world, everyone would meet all of their nutritional needs through nutrition, through diet. But in today's modern world, the food supply is now so bad and people are time poor, most people. The idea that they're going to eat 3 healthy meals a day and maybe 2 super healthy snacks in between, it's unrealistic for most people. I'm not saying they shouldn't strive for it, but it is unrealistic. And that's where supplements are great because they fill in the gaps, right? They allow you to, literally, if you blood test, they allow you to figure out what you're missing and then plug the gaps. And sometimes supplements can be quite transformative for people. They really can make a huge difference if people are low on certain nutrients. So for a lot of people with an audience, if they're in the fitness world or the health space, a supplement line can make total sense.
Is there an ideal audience size? So we mentioned how many people. Is there a sweet spot you're finding? So if someone,
You know what?
and to lean in.
Yeah, it's more about what you said before about the engagement of that audience, because you can go on YouTube and find 2 channels where people have 1 million followers and you think, oh, that's good. And then you notice that one person's getting 3,000 or 4,000 views per video, which is not a lot for 1 million subscribers. And then someone else with 1 million subscribers is getting 200,000, 300,000, 400,000 views per video. That person has a lot more potential to make money. And there's many reasons why those numbers can look like that. Maybe the person with 1 million subs actually bought them, and that's why they're only getting 3,000 views a video. Or maybe the channel's seen its best. There's only so many years people can keep pumping out. Most people can keep pumping out a high level of content. So maybe people have just got bored of the channel. But so it could be a very small audience. It could be a small audience. We've always got a lot more dollars per person on our email list than a lot of our competitors. In fact, almost all of our competitors. We know people who had lists, email lists, 10 times the size of us, and we had revenue double them. Because it's not about how many people are on the list. It's about how engaged they are and how well you treat them.
Well, so if you have a captive audience and you're not selling supplements, or maybe you're selling supplements, but you're just reselling and you haven't built anything custom to what you're actually talking about, probably worth a conversation.
Yeah, I think one of the most important things in terms of having an engaged audience is that people give away a good amount of free information that's genuinely useful for people. If you bombard people with a different offer every day, whether it's your offer or somebody else's offer, an affiliate offer, sooner or later, why should somebody open your emails if they know it's just going to be a sales pitch every time? Whereas if, let's say, email is a way that you communicate with your audience, if you send four newsletters a week and 3 of them are pure content, that builds a lot of trust and goodwill so that when you pitch something, people, they want to listen to what you have to say. And actually, that's actually an interesting point. Anyone who has a social channel should be building an email list. I would rather have an email. I'm pulling these figures out of thin air to some degree, but just to give you an example, I'd rather have an email list of 100,000 people who are engaged than a YouTube channel with 1 million people engaged any day. And I can tell you, when we partnered with Sterling, the flow of his business was social was how he got people interested. But then he was very smart. Before he met us, he was already building an email list. So he already had a big email list. And that's really where the majority of Clubhouse sales came from to start off with, his email list, much more than his social.
I love that. Yeah, obviously we host a community. And so my thought is social's the big, email's next, the community's even smaller, right? Or that could be your client base where it's highly engaged. So if you have a big client base or community and an engaged email list, yeah, you're probably primed to promote something. I want to go back and talk info products because I love the idea of leading with value. Obviously, it's core to who we are. We share our whole masterclass inside of ACES with email templates and everything. So I love the philosophy. If someone's thinking about their brand, how do they come up with ideas on content? Should it be an ebook? Should it be video? Give me a little more depth on creating content.
Are we talking about a piece of content that's going to get them to opt in for an email list, or a piece of content that they can sell?
Let's focus on the free side. So what free value should they be providing, and how do they think about that with their customer journey?
So it's interesting. I was talking to my wife about this just yesterday because she's been making sourdough bread for, I don't know, a couple of years. And she's gone from knowing nothing about it, just wanting to do it, to studying a lot, making a load of mistakes, slowly but surely improving this sourdough over time. And now it's like she's baking bread for all the mums and dads at school and getting all this crazy, really good feedback. And she was like, I wonder if I could make a business out of this. And I said, sure you could. And we were saying you could go down the route of trying to be a baker, but unless you can scale it, there's not a lot of money in it and there's a lot of time. Like, you gotta make a lot of loaves of bread before it starts to be profitable. So I said to her, why don't you teach people how to make sourdough? Because it's really tricky. A lot of people want to, it's like really in fashion, but nobody knows. You can't really learn it from a 2-minute video here or a 2-minute video there. People would be much better served by having a video course that walk them through it. So she was saying, how do I do that? And I was talking to her about it. So the first thing is, as you're doing, you put a lot of content out there and start building some traction on social. But I said, then try and get those people off social onto an email list. Not off the social, but onto the email list. They can still be on Instagram or YouTube or whatever. She said, how do I do that? So I said, basically, you need to give away a free piece of content. And she said, what should that be? And I said, think of the most powerful technique or strategy that you could give away for people who are new to learning how to make sourdough. So I said something like, here's the number one reason why your sourdough always does, whatever the big issue is when people make sourdough bread, here's the reason why, and give that away. And then when people opt into the email list, they'll get that report or that video, however you choose to deliver the content. And then, of course, at the end of the video, you can then ethically and elegantly sell your full course on how to make sourdough. And you've given away this one thing, which doesn't tell them the whole thing. You're not giving away the whole system, but you are giving away this one thing that deals with one of the huge problems that that audience on the whole has been experiencing. So you got to give away something really high value, right? And make it simple, quick, and easy for them to digest it.
I love that. I love that idea of with AI as a supporting tool now, right? Go in and dive into whatever your thing is and go, what are the biggest pain points? And then create that. I love that you use sourdough because I could probably have Haley do the same thing as I feel like she's been on this journey for 3 years and I'm feeling chickens and goats are next. Good luck.
Yeah.
This leads me into the industry to industry kind of transfer. You did highlight that early, and I love that idea. We call it, when I speak in colleges, I'm like plagiarize, right? There's people are already doing something awesome in another industry, but most industries are so siloed that they're not looking outside to figure out what's working. You've talked a lot about the male audience and performance thing. At least that's where you started. Does what we're talking about apply to other industries? And if so, do you have any case studies there? And then maybe this could be a point where we talk about what we're launching with golf.
Yeah. When you say, does this apply? Do you mean like thinking outside the box?
Yeah, more the supplement side. So we've talked a lot about the performance and stuff. How do we transfer this to other industries? And what examples do you have there?
Yeah, totally. We've always been in male enhancement, but you could apply it to any industry that's in the health and wellness niche. If someone had a website where they talk a lot about digestive health, or they had a website where they talk a lot about sleep, or they have a website where they talk a lot about cognitive function, brain fog, trying to be more mentally astute, etc. And let's say that they helped people to this point in time only with video and the written word. So they sold books and they sold video courses. They could easily develop a range of supplements to support their customers. And if the supplements are good, people might get a lot more out of the supplements than they do out of the video course or the book. And the great thing about supplements is, as long as you produce something high quality, and that is key, it has to be high quality, it has to work. People buy it month in, month out, often on auto ship. And that makes a lot of money. So yeah, people could apply this to any niche to do with health, wellness, fitness. Yeah.
Love that. And I think you highlighted some great examples, right? Weight, sleep, brain fog. There's probably some key things that your people are creating content on. Gary just dropped in the chat, aging. That's another one, right? How are we staying metabolic rate, things like that. So that any of these things, just sharing ideas, because if you're watching this and engaging and you're sitting here going, man, that is what I'm talking about, or that is core to my message. And you check some of those boxes on engagement, audience size. This is something you can consider. Now, what I want to dive into is you figured out how to get through this in a cost-effective way and actually launch a supplement. It sounds like there's a lot of ways to do this wrong too. Wrong supplement companies, wrong fillers. So talk to me about how do you do it right and what should people avoid if this is something they want to consider?
There's a lot of people making a lot of money selling white labeled supplements. But a white label supplement being the manufacturer already has, let's say, 20 different supplement SKUs, and you give them your label and they put that label on the supplement and then you sell it. I don't like that business model, even though you can make a lot of money with it, because you're just selling a commodity. You're selling the same as 10, 12, maybe 100 other businesses. It's just got a different label on it. And I think in the long run, people know that, customers, and I don't see it being a good strategy for a long-term business. So then you end up in this tricky position where you're ringing different manufacturers and find out what their terms are. And as soon as you want something custom, it's usually tens of thousands of dollars. And we worked with one company years and years ago, early on, before we had this figured out. And the first order we did with them was a 6-figure order. And that's not 6-figure retail, that's 6-figure cost of the goods. And it was 80% up front. And then they quoted 6 months lead time, and then we paid 20% on completion. However, it took them 8 months. And there was no discount for the extra 2 months. That's just how they worked. They were actually a giant pharmaceutical company who also produced supplements. And that creates a cash flow headache. So we've got a deal with our supplement manufacturer where we have very low costs up front, and they only bill us at the end of the month for what they've manufactured for us during the previous month and shipped. It's a crazy model, but we've been able to negotiate that because of the results that we have. They're not going to do that if people repeatedly have stock if it doesn't sell. But we've got a good track record with them, so we've been able to negotiate that deal. And it takes most of the cash flow issue out of the business. Because there is some upfront cost for each new SKU, but once we swallow that, going forwards, let's just say on September the 1st, they're billing us for what they've shipped for us in August. So that makes it a lot more straightforward. And that is something people could try and negotiate for themselves, right? More of an on-demand or just-in-time business model, whatever you want to call it. But it is tricky. It is tricky. And I do know people who burned themselves with supplements because they didn't really know what they were doing and they committed to a big order and then they didn't sell it. But there's one of the biggest things, first of all, is knowing your audience. You got to know your audience. You got to know what those people want. And if you do your homework up front, you pretty much know you're going to have a success. If you guess at what people want, and this isn't just supplements, this is just business in general. If you guess at what people want, then there's a fair chance you're going to get it wrong. And that might prove costly depending on how much time and effort and what you've created.
Love that. Obviously, people can do their research and go look, but I think that there's some things to highlight there that I heard. It could be a lot of money, and it doesn't have to be, right? Depending on the partnership. Make sure that you're selling the right thing to the right person, which is just good business practice. People all the time innovating for no reason. So I love that. And then one thing you highlighted is you are manufacturing in the US now. How important is or isn't that? I don't know the industry, so I'm sure there's good manufacturing elsewhere as well. Why was that your guys' decision?
It was really important for us because about 90% of our customers are in the US. So it keeps the shipping cost down, and it means that shipping is quick for 90% of our customers. If we were really a huge business doing $100 million a year in revenue, then we might consider having a manufacturing plant somewhere else in the world so that we could ship quicker to those 10% of customers who are not in the US. But as it is, as a 7-figure business, having it in the US makes sense for us. And the US is very supplement hungry. I live in the UK and we've got 25% of the population of the US, maybe just under. But the sales of supplements are nowhere near the same. Elwin always said it's because in the UK, we've kind of trained the population to think that everything to do with health should be free at the point of contact because we have the NHS system, which is not a healthcare system at all. But anyway, that's another story. But the point is, British people are not as into spending money on supplements. We see it, they're just not. Whereas Americans seem to love supplements. So I guess that's another reason to have manufacturing in the US.
Love that. I love that you talk about shipping, right? Because that's something anyone who's done e-com, that's a huge part of it, cost and time.
Yep.
As I'm sitting here packing some crop out to ship today, right? If it gets there in 3 days, that's great. If it gets there in 2 weeks, now you have a lot of questions, concerns. Let's talk about e-commerce platforms. Might just be an interesting conversation. There's a lot of ways and places to sell. You could do WooCommerce, integrate with a WordPress site, Shopify, Magento. What are you finding is the path of least resistance when it comes to selling online?
There's a one-word answer, Shopify. Seriously, ever since we started using Shopify, it's been really good. I think there's a lot to be said about the Shopify checkout page. It's so ubiquitous now that people know it, and I think they probably trust it and feel at home when they go to an e-commerce site, especially if they're on Google and they find an e-commerce site they've not been to before, and it's, do I trust this company? Don't I trust this company? I think that when they go to the checkout and they see Shopify, there's some sort of trust element there that's good. And then Shopify has got nice reporting. It seems, I'm not responsible for this in our business, but it seems like you can modify it to look however you want. There's no way you'd go on our website and know it was a Shopify website. It looks really killer because we've got a really good designer and then a programmer who can put those designs into place. So yeah, I think Shopify is good. WooCommerce, I don't know. I've never used it, to be honest. Yeah, I don't know. But Shopify seems good. I'm not really a tech guy, Devin. So as long as something works tech-wise, I'm okay with it. I don't want to, I don't tend to mess around like trying 18 different platforms. Shopify is huge. It's popular. It seems to work.
Love that. I think that's a fair answer. It's the reason people ask us, why are we building a community in school? Because people are familiar with it. They're in
Yeah.
multiple communities. The path of least resistance, they trust it. Whereas
Totally.
this random community opt-in, they're like, what are we doing? Why are we doing it?
100%.
Talk to me about, I want to talk about something I know we're working on the golf project, which is like these really interesting integrated bonuses and incentivizing people to subscribe to your supplements or buy bulk. But you can't just incentivize that by a price. A strategy that you use is incentivizing it with these really awesome value add bonuses. Talk to me about that.
Totally. So, if you study any of the great marketers and copywriters of all time, like Gary Bencivenga, Dan Kennedy, John Carlton, Gary Halbert, they'll all talk about bonuses, giving something free with your product or service that has a genuine value and therefore makes the perceived value higher to the prospect and helps get them over the line, to the point where sometimes the bonus might be more appealing than the product or service itself, which kind of makes it a no-brainer for the person to follow through and make the order. The thing about bonuses is, though, like a lot of things, they've been overdone. A bit like email. Like these days, if you want your emails to be opened, you better make sure they're good. Whereas 15 years ago, email was so novel that just the fact that you sent an email will probably get it opened by a lot of people because people weren't so used to having them. So I think the same is true of bonuses. Like in years gone by, people could put a bonus with their product or service online, or they could even stack multiple bonuses. And it wouldn't really matter what the bonuses were as long as they half made sense. And they'd say, the product is $39 and we're giving you $1,000 of bonuses. So in reality, you're getting this for 95% off. And people would be like, wow, and they pull the credit card out. These days, I think that's been done too many times. You need to be more strategic with the bonuses. And the most important thing, more than putting a monetary value on it, is just making sure that the bonus is something that the prospect definitely wants. Because you give away a bonus nobody wants, it's like or only 10% of people want. For the other 90% of people, you're just taking up space in their email inbox, on their computer, if they have to download it, whatever it is. So you and I are partnering with two of our friends on this golf supplement, which is going to help people feel more relaxed on the golf course and also more mentally sharp, which is great. However, you and I both know the way that the biggest golf brands in the world sell the majority of their clubs is distance. The average golfer, distance is like up here in terms of what they want to hear about. Everything, there's a few other things they want to hear about, but they're all a distance second, third, fourth. So I said, Devin, we need a bonus that helps the golfers hit the ball further. Because now if we're selling the product that's going to make them feel less nervous, stressed, anxious on the golf course, and have less brain fog, that's great. Now, if we throw in the distance element, we're going to see a higher conversion. We're bound to. Whereas if we gave away an obscure bonus, like what would an obscure bonus be for golfers? I don't know. What could it be? Like how to clean.
They're like, I'm not doing it anyway.
Yeah. That would be a terrible bonus because nobody wants it, and then you're just wasting space on the sales page or in the video telling people about this thing that they don't want. Whereas if we come up with this cool bonus, which I know you're already getting someone who knows this particular thing to create about how to hit the ball further, it's going to increase conversion. More people are going to pull the credit card out and buy the supplement because the bonus hopefully is going to be a legit, I don't know, $99 value, whatever it is. We'll have a look at it when it arrives. But so that's the bonus idea. I guess you could say it's over-delivering, right? It's giving more than people expect.
And I love anchoring on, again, we're going right back to where we were earlier. What are they looking for? And let's give them that. Let's not make random assumptions. Gary put in the chat, like giving someone a ball marker. I was thinking tees, like all those things could be great resale ideas where it's like, hey, here's products you might be interested in. As a bonus, I have enough swag. I don't need more of it. It's
totally. And if you can give away a bonus that doesn't cost you anything, that's even better. Like this bonus won't cost us anything because it's digital, which is great. So, because it's not eating into your profit, and yet it is building a lot more trust and goodwill with your customers, so that 2 weeks later or a month later or even a day later, when you offer them something else, another product or service, they're more likely to say yes because they feel endeared to you and because you've over delivered with their first purchase.
Love that. Talk to me about building a good sales page. I know there's so much we could go into there, but just give us a couple tips and tricks. If someone's building a sales page for an info product or a physical product, what are some things to think about?
There's certain elements that most good sales pages have. At the top of the page, you're going to have a headline. That headline might be, if we use the golf as an example, how to hit your drives 50 yards further straight down the middle of the fairway without practicing more than 5 minutes a week. Something that promises a big benefit, also lets the prospect know that they don't have to do the thing or the things that they don't really want to do. It could be like how to lose 50 pounds of body fat in the next 8 weeks without giving up your favorite foods and without doing hours of mind-numbing cardio every week. So you've got to have a big headline, a big promise at the top of the page to draw people in. Above the headline, you might want a little line that says who this is for. This is for anyone who loves the game of golf, or this is for people who want to lose between 25 and 50 pounds of body fat, whatever it is. I'm focusing on health and fitness type stuff because that's where my mind always goes, but you could apply this to any niche. You might want a section under the headline that really lets the prospect know that you understand their problem. You can do that with a series of bullet points. Have you ever had any of these problems? And by listing out 8 to 12 bullet points that talk to the problems that your product or service solves, you show the prospect that you really understand their issue. And when someone believes that you really understand it, they start to believe you when you say that you can help them solve the problem. You might want to give away some education. It could be 3 things you didn't know about X or the new scientific discovery and whatever. So some free content on the sales page is always valuable. And then when you start talking about the actual product, you want to go into a lot of detail about how this product was created, any proof that you have, testimonials you have, how the product or service is going to be delivered, everything the person gets. And always have a list of juicy bullet points that explain the benefits, not the features of the product. So a lot of people don't understand the difference between features and benefits, but if we were selling cars, the fact that the car has a steering wheel is not a benefit, it's just a feature. Whereas if you talk about how beautiful the car looks, that is potentially a benefit. If you explain how every time your friends walk past this car, when they come visit you, they're going to feel jealous as hell because it's so beautiful. That's a benefit. And then you're also going to want some kind of guarantee or risk reversal, if possible. With a product, that can be really easy. It can be a 30, 60, 120, 180, or even a year-long money-back guarantee. With a service, it's often a little bit more difficult because you're putting time into it, so it's harder to just give a straight guarantee. But depends how confident you are in your service. You may be able to offer some kind of risk reversal. In fact, you always can. So maybe if you offer a service where you generate sales for your client, you could maybe say to them, hey, this service is $2,500, but if I don't generate X in sales for you in the next 60 days, I'm going to give you 20% of the money back or something like that. Or if I don't generate X in sales for you in the next 60 days, I'll keep going until I actually bring in that amount of revenue for you. So there should always be some sort of guarantee or risk reversal. Then usually some kind of close where you paint the big scary picture of here's what's going to happen if you don't buy my product or service, and the big beautiful picture of here's how great your life is going to be if you do buy my product or service. And then at the end, you want a good PS section that summarizes the sales page in a couple of paragraphs for people who are skimmers, and some FAQs at the end. And that is a very short answer to a very long question, but hopefully it gives people some ideas.
There's so many takeaways in that one little snippet that, if you are selling anything online, just rewatch that. And then, go back to the greats and look at best copywriting. It still works. A lot of the direct sales copies methods, I think people should pay more attention to now than ever because people are using AI so much to create content that if you understand the art of it, it converts, like it works.
Yeah, you can definitely use AI to help, but if you don't know what a good copy looks like, you can't really use AI to help. It's hard in life to use a shortcut until you've done the thing yourself. I'm not saying it's always impossible, but because you don't know if the thing's working or not. If you're not capable of knowing what success looks like, or what good looks like, or what great looks like. So I would say AI can definitely be used to help write copy. Sometimes I use it myself. But if I hadn't spent 10 years writing copy, I don't think I'd be very good at using AI to help me.
That's awesome. All right, we've covered all sorts of ground. What haven't we talked about that you think's relevant in either launching
Well,
supplements, scaling? Give me some other nuggets.
if anyone is listening to this thinking everything Elliot's saying makes sense, and I've got an audience sat there that is ripe for a supplement brand, then obviously get in touch. However, I want to point out that a lot of people have an audience, and an audience could be that you might be a lawyer or an accountant or a dentist or a naturopath or an MD, and you've got a customer list, right? You've got patients who come see you, or customers, clients that come see you if you're a lawyer or an accountant. So don't think I'm just talking about internet marketing and email lists. But if you've got an audience, if you ask yourself the question, what else do these people want? You will usually be able to think of complementary products and services that you could sell to your audience. Now, you don't need to go out and produce those things yourself. You can just go do deals with the companies who produce those products or services and say, hey, I've got an audience who I know would love to buy your whatever it is. Can we do a profit share, rev share deal whereby every time I make you a sale, you pay me whatever it is, 40% commission. It's a very easy way for people to get more money out of their customers. And as long as you do it ethically by promoting them things that they genuinely want or need, then they're not going to resent you for it. They're actually going to like you more for it because you're making their life easy. So I think that's a big deal.
That's a great takeaway.
Cool.
I don't have any question without us going double the lane.
That's
So
good.
let's trap there. I think we packed a lot in. I really like the sales page overview. I think there were some really good nuggets there. I like the idea of who is a fit for, some red flags when thinking about it. I really like the look outside your industry. Like, if anyone takes anything away, that alone is a great cheat code. Like, you got to pick your head up and get out of the industry conference and the industry education and go look at what is the client experience, the sales experience, the follow through, the upsell in other industries. And then to everything Elliot's talked about, how can you then pull that into your business to serve your clients with what they actually need? So Elliot, I appreciate you, man. So much good content. How can people connect with you if they want to reach out?
That's a good question, actually. We should put that link to monetize my brand, and we should also put my email.
All right. So check below if you're watching this video, wherever platform you're on, there'll be links below to connect with Elliot. Elliot, thanks again. Appreciate your time and sharing your wisdom with us.
Cheers, Devin. Thanks.